Hello and welcome to week 6. And here we are in statistics for psychology. And let's see, there's 15 weeks in the semester. We're just trucking right along, aren't we? A little bit more than a third done. So we enter this week into a discussion about central tendency or typicalness. So central tendency is a different set of measures that we can look at data, and we get sort of the typical or middleness of that. So we're going to be looking at mean, median, and mode, the three tools that we have to give us, sort of a sense of middleness in our data. And this is what we refer to when we say what's the average or what's the typical, or even we'll hear in the news, as with the first assignment, looking at an article that includes central tendency. I have never encountered a article that dealt with data that did not report multiple measures of mean, sometimes median, and sometimes mode. You'll also see in the reading that there's some specific alignment between the types of data and the types of middleness we can actually use to describe that data. So it's connected to the type of data that ratio, interval, nominal, those names that we've been talking about. It's related to those. Now in the discussion, what I'm having you do is to look up an article, and using EBSCO, using the resources in our library to look up a peer-reviewed article in the field of psychology, and report out how that particular article talked about middleness. Now, depending on the data, and this is kind of the critical thinking part here, you look at the data that they used and the measure of middleness that they used, or central tendency, I should be using that phrase, the measure of central tendency that they have relates to the type of data. So that's what I'd like to see you discuss, sharing those notions with each other, just as if we were in a classroom and everybody had to come up with an example. So responses to these, you still have the expectation for 2 responses, and you could keep them relatively simple, yeah, mine was the same as that, great job, blah, blah, or interesting to see that that article used more than one measure of central tendency. You're not going to be looking for a whole lot of the kind of critical thinking and substantive response in the particular reply, but make sure you get those 2 done just for full credit. So you're at least reading up. The point is, as you come across these different examples through the process of this particular discussion, you're looking at your own, but you're also experiencing others' findings and their relation to central tendency. In the quiz, there's some critical thinking about nominal data. Nominal data in specific. I want you to do extra reading, extra looking at the concept of nominal data, that particular data type, and the limitations. And when I say critical thinking question, it means there's trick questions. It means you have to see behind the question just to get that deep level of understanding what I'm asking for you to do in this particular quiz. There's a set of questions like that. Especially the last one is a critical thinking question. And finally, the assignment's a little tricky, because the assignment, they're going to go into Brightspace, and there's a file to download, an Excel file that contains data. That data is nominal. You need to code that data on a new sheet. You have to align numbers for all the different nominal codes so that you can create an ordinal set of data. So it's like Likert scales that are, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is all the time, 2 is most of the time, 3 is about average, less, never, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're being given those words. You need to change those into numbers that you can then apply statistics to, and you'll be getting some descriptive data and looking at that using our plugin. It's that conversion, and you have to do it with a search replace tool that's in Excel. So I'm just adding that element just so you can get to know Excel that much more. So you're going to be given a whole list, thousands of items, so you can't go through manually. You're simply going to, you look at the term, you have an idea as to what number you want to replace with that. First, you duplicate the data so you don't, ruin the original data. Duplicate the data in the new sheet, and then you do a find replace for all the instances of a particular answer and replace it with a number. Then you're using a numerical form of ordinal data, which in the field of psychology, although we're not technically supposed to apply those kinds of statistics to ordinal data. We can, and we allow it to happen when we have something like a Likert scale. So it's sort of exception to the rule. You're turning the verbal responses of a Likert scale into numerical responses of the Likert scale, to which you can then apply statistical analyses. Very, very common procedure. In fact, many survey software, like the one we use here at KV, allows you to export what is presented to students as nominal data. You can actually predetermine the numerical equivalence to that and export your data just in numbers, so that you can go, fast-paced to data analysis. And so I'm asking you to do that manually. It's a couple steps. If there's any questions, you can look stuff up. I think there's some pretty clear instructions in the course book itself. And get started on this assignment early, so if you run into any sort of glitches or you're having confusion with something, you have time to get back to me and we can talk about it and go from there. So enjoy this week. Look forward to reading about the articles that you experience in the literature and your finding of central tendency, and you have a great week. It looks like it's warming up. As I said, I'm recording all of these on Monday, and it's pretty warm out there. So you take care and have a great week.